Los Angeles goes dark, and then the sky starts exploding. More than 1,400 shells go up, yet nothing clear comes down. You get shell fragments, panic, and witnesses who can't agree on anything. Wait, was this a Japanese raid, a balloon, or just fear losing its mind? And here's the thing. Nobody ever proves what was really up there. December 7th, 1941 hits first. Pearl Harbor changes the whole mood overnight. You can feel it. West Coast nerves are shot, and every alert feels real. Japanese submarines stalk the coast, sometimes close enough to be seen from shore. Franklin D. Roosevelt enters the story as the war becomes official. By late February 1942, Southern California is primed to overreact. February 23, 1942, a Japanese sub surfaces near Santa Barbara. Its deck gun targets the Ellwood oil field, and the shelling lasts 20 minutes. Ellwood takes hits, but the damage stays light and nobody is killed. Still, after Ellwood, you can see why everyone thinks invasion might be next. Naval Intelligence warns on February 24th. An attack may come within 10 hours. Southern California flips to yellow alert, then back to white 3 hours later. The coast calms a little, but nobody actually relaxes. At 1:44 a.m., 3 radar stations track something heading for Los Angeles. By 2000 a.m., the target sits about 200 kilometers offshore. Green alert follows fast, and the gun crews get ready for a raid. Roughly 25 minutes later, it seems to be just 5 kilometers from the city. The alarm sounds, and Los Angeles is blacked out in an instant. Then the radar contact vanishes, and the eyewitness reports flood in. Reports range from one fighter to a whole fleet of 200 bombers. At 3:07 a.m., the order finally comes. Open fire! Searchlights slash upward, and the night over LA turns volcanic. Some witnesses say planes. Others say birds, balloons, even a blimp. One account traces the object from Santa Monica down toward Long Beach. By a little after 4,000 a.m., the barrage fades after burning through 1,400 rounds. Okay, the morning papers try to explain what nobody can actually prove. Early reports claim multiple enemy planes crash in southwest Los Angeles. A police officer even says he sees 2 planes fall through the beams. But the search turns up only shrapnel. No bombs, no wreckage, nothing. Franklin Knox calls it a false alarm caused by nerves and overexcitement. Henry Stimson pushes back, saying up to 15 unidentified planes may have flown over. That split alone keeps the whole country guessing. The war ends, and by late 1945, the mystery gets dragged back into view. Declassified testimonies describe a red flare tied to a balloon over Santa Monica. One unit even reports setting a plane on fire right after the barrage starts. Yet the March 22 conclusion still lands in the middle. 1 to 5 unknown aircraft. Japanese involvement gets ruled out, and that only deepens the mess. The FBI helps search for any aircraft link from the Americas and finds nothing. Then, in 1948, William Goss enters with a cleaner answer. Weather balloons. Goss gets full military access and says the evidence points to meteorological balloons. At least 3 officers say they identified the target as a weather balloon. One officer even holds fire after learning a balloon had been released by a regiment. A general backs that up, saying 2 weather balloons launched near Hollywood that night. And the speed fits, about 40 kilometers in nearly 30 minutes. That's way slower than an aircraft, and investigators notice it. Artillery crews are criticized for ignoring how slowly the target is moving, but then you hit the obvious problem. Why fire on a harmless balloon at all? John Murphy says a controller in San Francisco mistakes it for a Zeppelin. According to Murphy, that mistaken call triggers the order to open fire. Army notes say fire authority should belong to the anti-aircraft commander, not him. Still, one giant question just refuses to go away. How do 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds fail to bring down one balloon? LA Times writer Bill Henry says the object takes direct hits and keeps going. But in the same column, he also says it looks like a cluster of balloons. Then there's the famous photo published on February 26, 1942. You compare versions, and the image has clearly been retouched before publication. Another version appears in 1945 with flipped framing and in large bursts. Retouching was common back then, so the photo doesn't settle anything. The beams seem to meet on something, but nobody can say what that something is. Plane, balloon, smoke cloud, spaceship, take your pick. Other photos from that night are blurry too, and none show a clear UFO. So the balloon theory works, right up until it doesn't feel satisfying anymore. Murphy later claims both balloons drift away safely, almost majestically. But an unnamed air raid warden says the fire tears a big bag to shreds. That wreck supposedly drifts slowly toward the ground. Or maybe it's simpler. Balloons rise, drift, and are just hard to hit. A target moving sideways and upward is tougher than it sounds. So here's one plausible chain. First balloon goes up around 1000 a.m. Those reports get misread as a Zeppelin, and the barrage starts after 3000 a.m. Maybe that balloon is destroyed. Maybe it simply climbs out of range. Then a second balloon rises, and the whole panic basically resets. Meanwhile, more than 1,000 shell bursts fill the sky with drifting smoke, and that smoke may create the illusion of entire squadrons overhead. An acting commander later admits he mistakes drifting smoke for aircraft. One old claim says fighters pursued the object, but that turns out to be wrong. Investigators say they had only 45 pursuit planes across 3 separate locations. They don't want those planes arriving low on fuel if a real attack follows. Okay, last big problem, the radar tracks. 3 stations detect the object at 1:44 a.m. and track it near the city. Then it disappears from scope and never comes back. Even while searchlights converge, multiple radars scan the spot and see nothing. In January 1942, Robert Watson Watt judges West Coast radar gravely unsuitable. He warns the equipment is in grave danger of plotting false tracks. He also says the operators simply aren't trained enough yet. An Army review in early February confirms Western defense is entirely inadequate. So yeah, bad radar could absolutely fake part of this night. But it's still weird that some people claim they clearly see targets through binoculars. So where does that leave you? Honestly, nowhere clean. The weather balloon theory has real support, and you can build a full timeline from it. But a mountain of conflicting testimony keeps poking holes in it. Maybe nothing at all flies over Los Angeles that night. In that version, wartime nerves and the Ellwood shelling do all the damage. Knox's phrase still fits. A false alarm. Or maybe one or more real objects were there, and the records just never line up. You can support several theories here, and that's exactly why the case survives. An article in 2011 basically says there's room for lots of beliefs. That ambiguity is the case now. It's basically the whole case. What sticks is how fast uncertain data can turn into mass certainty. You start with one contact offshore and end with a city firing into the dark. Bad radar, bad communication, fear, smoke. It's a brutal combo. And if there was a real object, the evidence never locks it down. That's why the Battle of Los Angeles never really leaves the culture. If you made it this far, hit subscribe. It's how Zero Day Stories keeps running. There's a whole catalog of cases like this one waiting for you on the channel. Go pick your next story. They're all up there. See you on the next one.